in 2009, there was the expectation or the potential that the plan would be in litigation. When the traffic studies were submitted to the city, there were offsets and credits that developers get throughout this city, that developers get throughout this country, none of which the developer sought for this project so as to remove any subjectivity from what was happening. When you read the blogs that come out, I read the same deriding of the traffic mitigation efforts. If you discount the traffic mitigation efforts and give them no credit, which I think would be wrong, you're talking about a project now that increases the peak hour trips at the only intersection within 1.5 miles that any expert said was impacted. That would be the Shepherd-Bissonnet intersection. Every intersection between here and there, from all the experts, show no appreciable change. If there was
We are better than that.
No, I think there's a misunderstanding.
He was asked a question, he's attempting to answer. If y'all don't want him to stand up here and answer questions, I'll ask him to leave. We are adults, and we are
I think there was a
better than that.
misunderstanding.
And we are in a
there.
house of worship.
Let me answer your question quickly from the standpoint of the defense. What was my own assessment as I sat down with these folks as to what was the desire to settle, what was the real motivation to settle? Frankly, I think they believed that the city was going to play musical chairs with them, and that every time they hit a step in the permitting process, the city would try and do something to avoid having to give them a permit. But the city could not lawfully do that. And they were looking for some stability by entering into this agreement. And it's one thing to deny a citizen a right and suffer the consequences with liability for all the taxpayers, and it's another thing to simply comply with the law. They wanted to be assured that we would comply with the law.
Ms. Dorfman?
It's now Sherborne.
Oh, sorry.
My name's Katie Sherborne. I actually no longer live in the neighborhood after my divorce. Last year, I moved out, and I now live in Montrose. But I'm here tonight. I was the former president of Boca. I love this neighborhood. I love the people in it. And most importantly, my 2 children still live here every other week. They are 2 blocks away from this project. They gained their only access from Ashby on a dead-end street. And I can tell you, with other construction projects in the neighborhood that were much, much smaller in scope than this, there are often mornings where I could not leave that block to deliver my children to their school on time because trucks would block the entrance and exit. I mean, this happens with just remodels of homes. So I find it hard to believe that there's going to be any control whatsoever during this construction process. You guys have ordinances on the books, but working at City Council, representing dozens of neighborhoods across the city, those ordinances are not foolproof. They have loopholes. Oftentimes I called the city attorney's office and was told there was nothing we could do to help these people. I just don't see the answer being any different here. My children have to go down Ashby to get home from school. And I don't have any assurances here from the ordinances. In the settlement agreement, you guys can require stricter requirements. I understand you cannot foresee everything that will happen, but at least it's a start. And I would like to have some minimum construction standards in that settlement agreement. I understand that you do have to work within existing ordinances, but I represent dozens of governmental entities, and I know that I can put things in a settlement agreement that I otherwise couldn't require them to do, because we're settling a case, and if they want the case to go away, they'll agree to my requirements.
We agree, which is why we just kept asking for more things in the settlement agreement. The difference with this project and the fact, the many projects that take place across the city of Houston, there will be someone, one point of contact assigned from the city, so that the designated neighborhood representatives, who we hope will meet regularly with representatives of the developer, with Mr. Feldman in the room, will have someone on the other end of the line to immediately respond if lanes are blocked, if driveways are blocked, so that you're not just sending it out and hoping that a part-time council member on the other end answers the phone. Sir.
I'm Mac Fowler. I'm a resident of the neighborhood. And I'm so mad and so disappointed, I'm not sure I can present these prepared remarks. Maybe I'll just get away from them for a moment. Mayor, we've worked together for years on quality of life issues, from the time you were at Mossbacker all the way through to your present position. And we've had some successes and we've had a few failures. This project is an unmitigated disaster for this neighborhood. It is just, this is loony. This is 1.6 acres. The only reason this is happening is because there was a U totem over there for years, and it's not, this little platted area isn't included in any sort of neighborhood restrictions. It's just a freak. And somehow or another, we haven't figured out how to stop it, because any reasonable architect, any reasonable developer, they admit that this is the wrong thing to do. Michael Stevens, bless his heart, who would develop anything in the world before he died, met with us and the developers and said, this thing is a disaster and we need to stop it. Quote. But at the end of the day, all politics are local, and you're looking at local politics. One of the reasons for all of this anger is because part of the sound you hear is the money going off the balance sheets of many of the people in this room. We have vulture offers for property abutting this development, and we have estimates of what this is going to do to nearby property values. And let me assure you, it's not going to be good. You know, it makes me think about the police motto, to serve and protect. That's what these citizens are asking all of you to do, to protect us from this mess. One of the things that, I have a question, just one second, I'll get to it. One of the things that worries me about this entire process is this organization, the Houstonians for Responsible Growth, which was formed immediately after this project occurred. And this is basically a group of leading developers in Houston who have organized to try to stop any sort of regulation that would prevent this sort of nonsense from happening. And that leads me to my prepared remarks. My question for you, Mayor, and in all due respect, I have an undergraduate degree in philosophy, so I feel comfortable with the question. What does the city's inability to stop such a miscreant project tell us about the city that we're living in? And what are we going to do? What are we going to do as citizens and elected officials whose duty is to protect the citizens, to get something in place that stops this sort of nonsense once and for all. And you don't need to say zoning. I understand that case. I'm talking about the citizens taking the city back from this Citizens for Responsible Growth crap. And this character from Austin, this carpetbagger, is over here defending these clowns, and stop this kind of nonsense. That's my question.
Mac, I was a Civic Club president in the Montrose area the last time zoning was on the ballot, and I fought hard for that. And as you did, and citizens of Houston voted it down, for the third time? I have a set of tools that I'm trying hard to work with. Is this a bad project? Yes. Is it the wrong project in the wrong place? Yes. Are we going to do everything legally in our power to make sure that they have to toe the line on that construction project? And yes, it's going to be a very, very tight construction zone, and it's going to cost them a lot of money to fit in that construction zone, but they agreed to it, and we're going to do our level best to hold them to everything they agreed to. Have we tried to push back against Citizens for, or Houstonians for Responsible Growth? Yes. That is why Council passed the development ordinance changes that we did at the end of last year. Barely, I might add. There were certain council members who were very strongly opposed to it because they are extreme property rights advocates. But if you are interested in, I can have Mr. Icken come back forward and talk about the changes we made to the ordinance to make it much more difficult for this kind of project to come forward again in the future. But as you know, we cannot retroactively legislate. I can make sure that the conversations as we were drafting the changes to the development ordinance, I'm not shy about saying, were how do we kind of called it, that project which cannot be named, but how do we stop that project? Does this ordinance stop that project? But I can't go back to a project that was approved in 2009 and unpop the popcorn.
Well, thank you. And as you know, I usually try to be helpful. But I'll tell this carpetbagger over here, he better do his duty to his client. And he better tell his client and his lenders that this deal isn't over for this neighborhood.
I'm Steve Grossman. I'm president of Boca this year, and I have a question for Mr. Icken. About a little less than a year ago, a neighbor of mine met with Mr. Icken about this project, and we asked him several questions, and he assured us that the city was behind both the efficacy and the legality of their curb cut ordinance, and they would press that to the limit to influence this project. Well, I said, you're working with a traffic impact study that was prepared by the developers, and now it's 4 or 5 years old. And not only has Bissonnette changed in that time, but in the next 2 years, a whole bunch of projects in the neighborhood, either directly on Dunleavy or a block or two off of Bissonnette, including hundreds of units on Greenbrier and in the village, are coming online. And we're working with an outdated traffic impact assessment. So I left that meeting. Mr. Icken took a note and left, and I understood. It was my understanding that he was going to ask the building department to order that impact study. We have a further email from Congressman Clutterbuck after that said we were due a new TIA. So my question is, and I asked Mr. Icken pointedly, I said, if the new TIA suggests that we should limit the trip-ins based on the new reality on Bissonnette, would that be used by the city? Could it be used by the city to limit the size of the project? And he said yes.
Let me comment, because the meeting was in 2009 at the time that we were dealing with Mr. Adler and some negotiations and discussions that brought the trips back. Some of you may recall that we had some questions on the traffic study that was given to us, and the city went out there and did our own traffic counts at that time. We